Hey guys, and welcome back to another breakdown of the boys. This episode was insane, and so insane that I'm gonna stop talking and let's just talk about it. So let's go ahead and just talk about the hearing right away, because this is what we were waiting for throughout the episode. We weren't sure if Lamplighter was gonna be the witness, what was gonna happen with Vogelbaum, and it all just turned into insanity in the end, with heads popping left and right by a soup who I'm dubbing Bubblegum Pop. That's my name for them.
Dave, did you see that coming? What did you think was gonna happen?
Dude, no. I mean, like, I was just waiting to see Vogelbaum would actually testify in favor of the boys. I was like, is he gonna actually reveal what happened? And then just pop. Like, what did you think?
Yeah, I meant I didn't expect it to go well, because the series would basically be over, because obviously anything Vogelbaum would have to say would be so damning to Vought that they wouldn't be able to lobby their way out of it. I did not see it going this way, though. This to me was like a red wedding level of trauma. Because so many like named main characters I cared about died, because they didn't really. It was like Vogelbaum and Shockwave, weirdly, and then some other people, but just because of the level of stakes for that were present in this scene. Like, so much was at stake here, and the outcome really mattered, and this is the worst possible way that it could go. And so watching it was just like, it was like watching characters I liked die, because that's how bad it was for them. Last
time Bubblegum Pop struck, as I'm calling this soup, Bubblegum Pop struck before, like, there was no audience, really. It was just the boys who saw it. And this was just like everyone, like the entire country, essentially, and probably world, is watching this. It made me think about, like, okay, like, we have to talk about who this could possibly be. And
do you have any theories?
So I was trying to think about, like, okay, maybe whoever this was in the room. That was one of my thoughts. So I started like scrubbing through the episode, and I was like, okay, what if the person like makes eye contact with whoever's head explodes before their head explodes? So that was one theory I had, and I was looking through, and it's hard to tell because everyone's just panicking, and everyone like looks at the head explosions a lot of times when they happen. But I noticed someone in the background who has like a beard, who is probably a random extra. This is probably a tinfoil hat theory, but he looked a couple times at people's heads exploding. I was like, that's a weird coincidence that it happened more than one time.
Dave, do you think you're maybe just more suspicious of people with beards because of all of our interactions?
I mean, that's very, very possible, Butcher. As people have said that you look like Butcher and I look like Homelander in these breakdowns. But that was one thing that came to mind. So if there's anything in that scene that people notice, let me know. Another thing is maybe this person has an ability where they can, if they're watching a TV screen, whatever's on the screen, they, as long as they see it, they don't have to physically be present. So maybe that was another possibility.
Yeah, we got that comment from Jason B on YouTube saying, I think Cindy knew the boys were there when they showed her staring at the security camera, talking about at Sage Grove, and so maybe if her power works through screens somehow. I'm not sure. I still don't really think that it's Cindy doing this, because her power seems different, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to me that Vought would have her out doing hits for them. What do you think about the Church of the Collective as the responsible party?
Like, okay, the Church of the Collective, what did they have to gain? Shockwave's head was popped, and that's a huge plus for A-Train, because now that's his way in. So because we know that the head of the Church of the Collective, Alistair Adana, was going to be meeting with Stan Edgar in a week, maybe this is like leverage to get A-Train in.
Plus, for the Church, they don't want to take Vought down. They want to infiltrate Vought, right? They want Vought to exist so that they can get Church of the Collective members on the Seven, A-Train and the Deep. So having the trial go ahead doesn't really work for the Church of the Collective. In addition to that, getting Shockwave out of the way and using this as an excuse to do that makes room for A-Train. So that's a possibility. Right. I want to talk about Vought as well, because if Vought were going to execute this plan, not only, I mean, they would look so, they would be the obvious candidate. They control the soups, and it's in their interest for Vogelbaum not to testify. Alistair told the Deep and A-Train in this episode that he had a meeting with Stan and that they were as good as back on the team. If that's true, Vought would no longer need Shockwave to replace A-Train. And so if you're Stan Edgar and you're planning this, you're looking at which of your own people you can sacrifice here in order to throw off suspicion and make it seem like you're also a victim here. I think Shockwave is a prime candidate for that.
They're probably going to blame soup terrorists on it because that's an easy thing for them to do, is they've already been ramping that up. Like, you know that Homelander and Stormfront are going to play that card 100%, regardless of who it really was. But let's backtrack, though, and let's go all the way back to the intro of the episode now. And let's talk about that because it was very different from the rest of the episode, whereas the end of the episode was very superhero. It was devastating. It was hard to watch, but it was in a fun show manner. At the beginning was a little closer to reality and a little harder to watch, I thought.
I totally agree. Yeah, the gore on this show is so out of control. Excellent. And I enjoy it as a horror fan. I enjoy it. And the head pops, I mean, I admire your fortitude in going through that scene frame by frame, because it's gross. Like, it's super fun, but it makes me go, ah! My reaction to the opening scene was very different, because the violence in that cold open is so much more realistic, so much more close to home, and it's just chilling to me. Like, it makes my skin crawl. Watching somebody be radicalized by somebody, you know, the voice of the podcast or the radio show he was listening to was clearly meant to be Alex Jones, extremist, right-wing conspiracy theory radio host. Vought News is basically Fox News, and then of course like the Facebook memes. Watching somebody be radicalized and turned into an extremist, literally staying up at night, unable to sleep, and ultimately doing something horrible, killing an innocent person, executing somebody, is just, that happens. This is something, unlike somebody, you know, using superpowers to explode people's heads. This is something that actually happens in real life and could happen to anyone you know. It could happen to you. That makes it more scary to me, and I think that they nailed the tone here, because there's no jokes, there's nothing funny or light about this opening. It's just tragic and chilling and sad and infuriating.
Yeah, and you get an on-the-nose reference, too, with Homelander straight up saying, "This used to be a good country, remember?" And, I mean, that's clearly a reference to Make America Great Again. Yeah,
the show, I don't think anybody watching this show could possibly be confused about the show's politics. Like, it's taking a stance, and I think it's a good stance, but whether or not you agree with that, it's not subtle.
I have a question for you. So after talking to you enough, through osmosis, I've kind of realized who Soldier Boy is to an extent, and I noticed that this guy who's a Stormfront fan also has a Soldier Boy poster. And also made me wonder, during the rally that Stormfront and Homelander had, there's like this statue there. Is that a Soldier Boy statue that's there?
I'm not sure about that. We haven't actually seen Soldier Boy really in the show. I can give a little bit of background on Soldier Boy because we saw the casting news recently. The Boys showrunner is Eric Kripke. Eric Kripke's previous show was Supernatural, which a lot of people are no doubt familiar with. And the news was that Jensen Ackles from Supernatural has been cast as Soldier Boy for season 3 of The Boys.
I didn't know that. I had no idea that he was going to be in season 3.
You got to pay more attention to the casting news, Dave. Soldier Boy in the comics is he was basically one of the earliest soups. Later, they introduce a new version of Soldier Boy, and they pretend that he was there during World War II. So the origin story of Soldier Boy is basically Captain America's origin story.
Going back to the rallies, we find out why Starlight, or what Stormfront's plan with Starlight was, which was to use her as a scapegoat and call her the enemy. Say that she's a mole, so that way that they could even more so rally their troops and more so rally people behind their cause by having this enemy that people can get behind. So we find out that plan. So let's talk about Starlight and how horrible her mom is and how much I hate her mom.
Dave, we talked about this a little bit between you and me. The whole capture of Starlight was confusing to me a little bit because she took out her tracker, and then I was just a little bit confused about why she was so alarmed that her mom had talked to Vought, and I realized that it's possible that her mom talked to Vought, which made them realize that her mom was in town, and they started tracking her mom, and that was how they found Starlight. It's a little bit unclear, but clearly, as you pointed out to me, taking out the tracker has had some consequences. That said, Stormfront was clearly always going to throw her under the bus. As you pointed out, this is the plan. So this was bound to happen sooner or later.
It basically just expedited it in a way, I'm sure. So, but her cell is made to suppress soup powers. Interesting you'd have a cell that could suppress every soup's powers, but she can't use electricity in here, which is something that I didn't know until this season. I know you didn't know until this season.
Yeah, I feel like her powers got fleshed out a little bit better this season. So I want to know whether you are still a Black Noir fan.
I still like him in the sense that he's a cool villain, because he's still ninja-like. I still want to know why he was crying about the Compound V. But we definitely, he's been acting extremely villainous. He's just Stan Edgar's lapdog, essentially. So, he captures Starlight, and then when Starlight is able to break out later, we find out a couple details about him, which are going to be, maybe important. And we find out that, A, he has a tree nut allergy, which is great. The Almond Joy payoff.
The Almond Joy payoff from Starlight and Hughie's conversation earlier in the season on their road trip talking about Almond Joy. You and I talked about Almond Joy. I love Almond Joy. Most people think I'm wrong. I think they are wrong. I was very happy to get payoff for that. It was a weird little thing, but it was funny.
And let's talk about the fact that his mask, we revealed a little bit of who he was slightly, which is that he looked scarred, but also black in race. And that's important for a couple of reasons. One is that in the comments, I actually saw a lot of people predicting that Lenny was possibly Black Noir, so that debunks this, as well as what we find out with Butcher this episode.
That's such a fun theory. That's like, I really like that. It's not, I don't think it's true, obviously, but it's just like a fun thing to think about. Good job, everyone.
We should talk about something from the comics that was spoiled for me because of you guys in the comments. Thanks.
Thanks a lot.
And then also, you found out for me in the comics. So if you guys don't want a comic book spoiler, please skip ahead to the time code I'm going to put right here. But let's quickly talk about who Black Noir was in the comics, just like a real quick rundown of it. Again, if you don't want any potential comic book spoilers, please click on the timestamp shown on the video.
Yeah, hell yeah. So this is late game comics stuff. It may or may not happen in the show. After this, it's looking like maybe not. So in the comics, Black Noir is a clone of Homelander who Vought has installed as his, right-hand soup sidekick, basically, in order to have a panic button that they can hit if Homelander ever gets totally out of control and they need to put him down. They will activate Black Noir like a sleeper agent, and Black Noir will kill Homelander. That is the idea. Black Noir having to, basically be at Homelander's side for decades without being able to fulfill his one purpose in life drives Black Noir insane. And it turns out all of the stuff that people have or most of the stuff, I should say, that people have attributed to Homelander, these heinous acts he's committed, including the rape of Becca Butcher, was actually Black Noir all along trying to speed along Homelander's downfall so that he can fulfill his purpose and kill Homelander. There's a moment when Black Noir finally takes his mask off and it's literally just Homelander's face. So it seems like that's not happening because, we've always known that the actor who plays Black Noir on the show, Nathan Mitchell, is black. However, it was of course always possible that casting was a misdirect and he was just a guy in a suit for now. That said, I feel like there's still a way that they could do it. Black Noir could still have the same purpose even if he's not specifically a Homelander clone. He could have been built from Homelander's DNA, or he could have elements of Homelander's genetics in him, but, have a different appearance. but his ultimate purpose could still be to kill Homelander if Stan Edgar needs an off button.
But that wraps up the comic book spoiler section. You can rejoin us now. I'm having a little bit of leeway time here just for people rejoining. Black Noir gets knocked out, though, thanks to Maeve. And what led Maeve to doing this, as we find out, is that Elena is not... I don't think she's as understanding as she should be about what happens.
You're on Queen Maeve's side in that fight.
You know, specifically in the airplane scenario, there was literally nothing Maeve could do. So I think it's unfair of Elena to blame Maeve for what happened there.
Yeah, I agree with you. Isn't it nice when we agree, Dave?
It is nice.
I don't understand what I mean. Like, obviously, watching this video and seeing somebody you love in that situation would be traumatic. I think Elena is being crazy unfair to Maeve because, I mean, as we've talked about before, Queen Maeve can't fly, and she obviously doesn't know how to fly a plane. So I don't know what Elena expected her to do in this situation. Queen Maeve is literally begging for these people's lives. She's attempting to stand up to Homelander. I don't understand. Elena literally goes, "How many other people have you killed?" It's like, she didn't kill these people. This isn't her fault. There's nothing in this video that is damning toward Maeve. In fact, it looks pretty good for her because she tried, you know?
She also has expressed to Elena how afraid of Homelander she is.
Yeah.
So, you know, like, Elena's watching that video knowing that Maeve is terrified of Homelander, too. So, yeah, it just felt totally unfair.
That said, it is, as a comics reader of the boys, it is fun to see sad but fun to see Queen Maeve kind of slipping further toward her comics character. The version of Queen Maeve from the books is like completely jaded and cynical, drunk all the time, chain smoker, constantly has like beefy naked dudes around in her bed to use for whatever purposes she wants.
The way all of this, of course, starts, though, is Hughie watching porn with Lamplighter and deciding to go save Starlight. And it was so great. All these like parodies of the porn parodies were amazing.
Deep does it in the blowhole. That was the worst. So I was reminded of my conversation with Shawn Ashmore, the actor who plays Lamplighter, that we talked about last week a little bit, when we were talking about what the boys had used to blackmail him in the first place. And Shawn Ashmore, you know, revealed to me a little bit that Lamplighter is basically a pervert. He's a sex addict or whatever. He has sex with underage girls. And that is alluded to further in this episode. Congresswoman Newman suggests that he has had sex with cheerleaders from Sacred Heart. Sacred Heart is a middle school for girls in New York City, middle school and high school, so that's not good. And then he also tells Hughie that they used to sneak not college girls, but girls who were applying to college into Vought Tower through the side entrance. So Lamplighter, not a very sympathetic dude, even though he burned himself to death. Not great. In doing so, he did allow Starlight to break out of her cell, so redemption?
Yeah, I don't think that was on purpose, though. I think he ruined his chance at redemption. It just happened to luck out that it turned into a redemption, but yeah, I think he ruined his chance.
I'm going to choose to believe that he thought that would let her out. I'm going to choose to believe that.
Sure. Okay, you believe the positive end of it. You be optimistic with it.
Thank you.
But yeah, so Hughie does make it out with Starlight, and unfortunately Starlight's mom.
You think he should have left her there?
Yeah, screw it. Well, he didn't know. I guess
he opens the door. Hi, Mrs. January. Shoves her back inside.
Yeah, just close it, lock it again. Whoops. I'd be fine with that. Of course, this whole time, Hughie initially wanted to take Butcher, as he would, but Butcher was off with his family. And I was pretty excited to see that Butcher's mom is Mrs. Patmore from Downton Abbey, for any of Downton Abbey fans. And we do find out a lot about why Butcher is the way he is, a little bit more about Lenny, and just how abusive his father was.
Yeah, a lot of this is really similar to the comics. There's an entire volume of the comics, multiple issues, where Butcher is basically telling his backstory in the form of recounting his life to his father's corpse at an open coffin, at the viewing at his dad's funeral, basically. A lot of the backstory is the same. He was in the British Special Forces. He had a brother named Lenny. His dad abused them. In the comics, Lenny got hit by a bus, so that's a little bit different. But I think the show's version sort of just adds to the overall sense that Butcher's dad was not a great guy. There was one line that I thought was a funny sort of nod to something in the comics, which is when Butcher tells his mother that he'll piss on his father's coffin. In the comics, the whole arc of him talking to his dead dad at the open coffin viewing concludes with Butcher literally pissing on his dad's face and saying, "I'm glad it was an open coffin."
Becca Butcher, though, other side of Butcher's family, has a pretty rough day. It's that horrible moment where you're hanging out with her and all of a sudden Homelander and Stormfront appear out of nowhere and you're like, oh no, crap.
Yeah, watching them float down onto the lawn, and Stormfront she seems so demure and nice when she wants to, and she's just like, hello, and it's like, oh, you're so evil. Yeah. And the feeling of the increasingly like tragic spiral of helplessness of watching this storyline play out. Basically, Stormfront and Becca are in a tug of war over which way they're going to convince Homelander to go. Should they leave Ryan there with Becca, or are they going to take him away and become his parental figures? And it made me feel so helpless to watch.
I know, and you can kind of understand Ryan's perspective, the kid, because really he had been lied to all of his life, and discovering that would be shocking. Like, what? Yeah. Why would you do that?
And you can understand Homelander's point of view a little bit. Homelander's obviously an evil bastard and a sociopath, but he's not taking Ryan away just because he's a villain and he wants to be villainous. He's taking him away because you get the sense that he really wants Ryan to have a different upbringing than he had. And he sees too many similarities with Ryan being stuck in this compound. Even though he is with his mother, he sees too many similarities, and he thinks that he can do a better job with him. So I don't agree with Homelander, and obviously Stormfront is manipulating him, but you can see his point of view, and that's part of what makes him such a great villain. But Dave, continuing on this topic, I really think that the theme of this episode was family and parenthood, the relationships between parents and their kids, and vice versa. I mean, if you think about it, almost every storyline in the episode, almost every character in this episode encountered or reunited with or just spoke about or reminisced about their parents in some way. Hughie talks about his mom. Lamplighter says he wanted to make his father proud right before he burns himself to death. Starlight reunites with her mom, obviously, and that's complicated. The entire Becca, Homelander, Stormfront situation is all about the best way to raise Ryan, who would do the best job. Homelander wants Ryan to have what he didn't have, which is an upbringing with his parents. Butcher confronts his dad, of course, and at almost the same time threatens Vogelbaum's kids. Vogelbaum doesn't want to testify because of his relationship with his daughter. What am I missing? Congresswoman Newman is, when the protesters are outside her house, is cooking with her kid.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Which prompts Frenchie to reminisce about his mother cooking with him, which prompts him to ask Kimiko about her parents, causing this extremely cute scene where she finally opens up and begins to teach him her sign language. So it really pervades the entire episode. I thought it was pretty interesting.
Yeah, and speaking of family, let's talk about the one thing that doesn't involve family: the Church of the Collective.
That's so true. I tried to connect it in my head somehow. Like maybe Alistair is kind of a father figure to the, and I was like, no, it doesn't really.
You know, you could say the Church of the Collective is its own family within itself.
That's true.
Yeah, so it's Alistair Adonis' birthday party, and Eagle the Archer has been deemed a toxic personality, claiming the program has failed him, which, by the way, Scientology has a thing called suppressive person, so it's basically just a riff on that, same thing. And I loved that in his, like, when he was calling out the church, the headline was underneath, currently number one, or Eagle the Archer, currently number one search on soupporn.com. I did the dirty work for you guys, don't worry. I went to soupporn.com to check. Unfortunately, it just goes to the boys' website. We can't watch those porn parodies. I'm sorry.
Dave, I too did the dirty work.
Okay, I'm glad I'm not the only one.
For research purposes only.
For science. It was for science. So the Deep just throws Eagle the Archer under the bus immediately. He's like, oh, he's not my friend. Like, right when he becomes a toxic personality.
The Deep is such a little he's just such a douchebag. Earlier we were talking about how, in an earlier breakdown, we talked about how it's like the Deep obviously the Church of the Collective is terrible, but the Deep seems to have legitimately had a character arc and become somewhat better. He apologizes to Starlight, etc. This makes me think that he'll just say whatever the church tells him to, and he hasn't learned anything.
Yeah, I like that at least A-Train notices how screwed up that is when he's, like, watching the Deep just turn immediately.
Yeah, A-Train's not buying it. It makes me think that he maybe has a plan to get himself out of this situation and not allow the church to blackmail him.
Yeah, I hope so. I definitely hope so. But with that wraps up everything from this episode. Seriously, guys, let us know what you think, who you think Bubblegum Pop is. Let us know all your theories in the comments. I want to know. And yeah, we'll see you guys next week for the finale. I seriously cannot wait.
The finale that I sincerely hope answers two questions. I gotta know who Bubblegum Pop Man is, and I still need to know what's up with the frescoes.
I know. Those are the two biggest questions for sure. All right, guys. We'll see you next week. Later, guys.